Facebook.
Okay, let me share real
Hello,
quick.
Facebook folks. Okay, you guys have about a minute to share.
No, more than that. We have to get through
Oh,
the commercials. It's about a little over 2 minutes.
I'll turn it down.
Maybe a little bit. Hello? Yeah, he's still here.
Lauren, what's your last name?
It's Kane.
We're
C-A-I-N.
not even friends on Facebook.
Oh.
How about that? I am with Hakima.
You can reach us at 469-450-0027 or follow our journey on Facebook and Instagram at Candy Yams Kitchen. That's KANDIYAMZ Kitchen. Again, give us a call at 469-450-0027 or like our Facebook and Instagram page at Candy Yams Kitchen, spelled KANDIYAMZ Kitchen. Candy Yams Kitchen, food you can feel.
This is Carlos Guedes Harpist. I would like to see you guys this Saturday night at Sisiki's at the Star, located at 6765 Winning Drive in Frisco. I'll be performing instrumental high-energy music at 6:30 until 9:30 p.m. Make your reservation today at 972-377-2276. Remember, Sisiki's at the Star is a place to hang out on Saturday nights. For upcoming dates, look for me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
FBRN.US Fishbowl Radio Network. Jump in.
Hey, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm taking my freedom, pulling it off the shelf, putting it on my chain, wearing it round my neck. I'm taking my freedom, putting it in my car, wherever I choose to go. It won't take me far. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 golden, living my life like it's 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 golden, golden. I'm taking my own freedom, putting it in my song, singing loud and strong, moving all day long. I'm taking my freedom, putting it in my stroll. I'll be hot stepping, y'all, letting the joy unfold. I'm living my life like it's golden, 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 golden, living my life like it's 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 golden, golden. I'm holding on to my freedom, can't take it from me. I was born into it, it comes naturally. I'm
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Keema here on Fishbowl Radio in the Green Stream and showing simultaneously on Facebook Live on our page Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Keema. Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Keema is all about natural parenting, natural living, and a whole lot extra. And of course, we are your hosts, Lauren and Keema. Today's subject is what we are calling the crisis in the Black community.
Yes.
Black women are dying during pregnancy and delivery at an alarming rate, and we are going to talk about it today. Our special guests today are experts on this topic, and they are Hakima Tafunzi Payne and Nikia Lawson. Hakima will be calling in from Missouri, so we expect her call at any second now. And Nikia is here in studio with us, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we usually start with our weekly segment, What's Happening, but because today's subject is just so meaty and so important, we are skipping it this week to allow as much time as possible for our topic today. But before we do that, we want to introduce the two ladies that we will be having on the show, or that will be on the show today. First is Hakima Tafunzi Payne. She has a bachelor's of nursing and a master's in nursing education. She is currently a student of midwifery, working toward the CPM credential. Ms. Payne is the executive director of Uzazi Village, a nonprofit dedicated to decreasing perinatal health disparities in communities of color. She is an editor for a Clinical Lactation Journal and a tireless advocate for Black maternal and infant health. Ms. Payne serves on her local Fetal Infant Mortality Review Board. She presents at professional meetings on these topics. Her career goals include increasing the number of midwives of color and improving lactation rates in the African American community through increasing the number of IBCLCs of color. Ms. Payne resides in Kansas City, Missouri. Nikia Lawson is a DONA International Certified Birth Doula with over 20 years of birth experience and extensive business building education, a DONA International Doula of Color Trainer Fellow, and a DONA International Approved Birth Doula Trainer. She is an experienced childbirth educator and has taught classes to hundreds of expectant families for various community groups and hospitals since 2007. To date, she has assisted in the delivery of several hundred babies and supported families as a women's health specialist for the city of Fort Worth. She is a state of Texas approved lactation educator and has supported hundreds of breastfeeding mothers transition with the newness of nursing. She offers limited postpartum support as a, I'm going to mess this up. Can you say it? Bangkung?
Bangkung, yes.
Oh, I had it right.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Bangkung belly binding.
Yes, Bangkung belly binding specialist and placenta encapsulator. Her postpartum mothers get the benefit of these indigenous practices for overall recovery and wellness. Ms. Lawson has a bachelor's of social work degree and a master's degree in counseling, plus other professional credentials that help supplement the teaching environment and her commitment to support the families she serves. Ms. Lawson has 2 children, 1 grandchild, and lives in Fort Worth, Texas. I think you will agree after all of that these women are experts.
That was a mouthful.
Yes.
Good job.
You did
Good
an
job.
Awesome job.
Yes.
Awesome job.
So again, thank you, and we'll be awaiting Hakima's call shortly. And if you have any opinions on the topic that we are about to discuss, please feel free to call in at 214-431-5032 or add your thoughts in the comments on Facebook Live.
And now, after that mouthful, we're going to take a little break before we get started. I'm celebrating my 55th birthday this week.
Oh, yay.
And I seem to play Jaheim's song, Age Ain't a Factor, every year because I don't think that it is a factor. I don't feel my age at all. So we will be back to begin our discussion on the crisis in the Black community right after this short break. Enjoy my song, y'all.
Awesome.
My baby, what a lady, girl. You're like a rock, you get better with time. Got your knee along, oh, this your soul, you're so fine from everything that you wear. Your kind of beauty is rare, and I swear you get better looking with every year. It's your sexual peak, your full figure physique. Young girl can't compete, come cooking something to eat, baby. And since we in the kitchen, girl, let me get that muffin. You look better, but order it, yeah.
Can't believe the time, girl, you're getting better. Looking like a picture of a thought and after.
The story gets more pretty every chapter, getting more attractive.
Age ain't a factor. The young one that I got, I'm about to leave us. Baby, sitting on the vine with time was sweeter.
If I could be your man, girl, you won't want for nothing. You look better, but older, yeah. You really need to let me in your world, girl. What a proud girl. No cougar, you're still a kitten. Hidden, you working out, girl. Shut your mouth, you looking thicker. You know how to hold your liquor. Need to show me your ID, I get the picture. I propose and those players raise your glass. From my Vivica Foxes to my Stacey Dash. Ladies, it's Thanksgiving, and I'm about to eat that stuff. You look better, the older you get. I can't believe what time.
Looking like a picture of a thought and after.
The story gets more pretty every chapter, more and more attractive.
Age ain't a factor. Young one that I got, I'm about to leave us. Baby, sitting on the vine with time was sweeter.
If I could be a man, you'll never want for nothing.
Only you
After this, make it look so easy. Cajun spice season, sexy for no reason. Appetite pleasing, enough to sink my teeth in. If I tell them how good your love is, they wouldn't believe me. I can't believe it's time. Looking like a picture. Your story gets more pretty every chapter, more and more attractive.
age ain't a factor.
There's no factor.
Young one that I got,
I'm
I'm about to leave us. Baby, sitting on the vine with time was sweeter.
If I could be your man, you'll never want for nothing.
Only you
Can't believe what time.
can't believe the time, girl, you're getting better. Looking like a picture of a thought and after. Age ain't a factor. Young one that I got, I'm about to leave us. Baby, sitting on the vine with time was sweeter. You look better the older you get.
Welcome back to Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Keema. We are here with Nikia Lawson, and we're still waiting for Hakima to call in. She'll be calling in shortly. But we're going to go ahead and start our discussion with Nikia, who is definitely an expert. You heard her little snippet of her resume. So, she's definitely knowledgeable in the area. So we want to just start right off the bat with what exactly is the crisis. And first of all, I wanted to say this before you say that. I'm sorry. This is such a necessary conversation. A lot of times we don't talk about the things that we think are controversial or things that we think will make people uncomfortable. This topic is not meant to make anybody uncomfortable, but if it does make somebody uncomfortable, we apologize in advance. But it's something we have to talk about. The only way that we can come up with some solutions, and I'm not saying that we necessarily have the solutions in this room, but is for people to be able to talk about it. So, we say all the time, and this is probably controversial too, but it's my birthday this week, so I can say what I want to. But America is quick to point at other countries and to point at other folks' sins. There's a Holocaust museum in almost every state in the union. They're all over the place, but when it comes to talking about things within our own country, we hesitate to do that. So we need to have a conversation. So with that said,
Okay.
give us some background.
Well,
Tell us, what is the crisis?
Before we get into the crisis, let me just first say, since it's Memorial Day, I definitely want to make sure I give a shout out and pay homage to all of those who have served for our country, for our freedoms.
Absolutely.
I got to give a shout out to my fallen soldiers, to my stepfather, Wanda Stone. May he rest in peace. Saluting him from heaven. My once beloved Eugene McCrory Jr. Got to give shouts out to those fallen soldiers in my life. My daddy, I got to say, to my veterans in my life, my daddy and my girl Yolanda Rossio. Definitely want to say that. And my cousin, Maggie Wilson, to all of our U.S. soldiers and their families for the sacrifices that they made.
Absolutely.
Today is definitely dedicated to you, and all days are dedicated to the sacrifices and the service to our country.
Yes.
So with
Thank
that
you
being
for reminding us
said,
to say that.
No problem, no problem. I definitely couldn't get started today without doing that first. But to speak to what's going on in our country, as we think about all those who have served, I think about all those moms and those babies who have made an ultimate sacrifice as well. And for some of those families, that means that they have had to lay their loved ones to rest. And so they'll be remembering them for a whole different reason.
Yes.
And so that speaks to the crisis that we're dealing with as it relates to black infant mortality and black maternal morbidity. Here in our country, to say the word crisis is an understatement to what we're dealing with. This is an epidemic to the point where, African American women are dying at 4 times higher rate than our ethnic counterparts. In some states like New York, the numbers are up to 12 times higher for black women in New York State. And so those are things that we need to really look at and look at more aggressively and then look at it from a community perspective. It's definitely, we can see from a systemic situation where our healthcare system is doing what it's doing, what it's been doing over the years since the inception of our healthcare system. It has been run by the colonial ideology, which puts white males in control of the health aspects of all women, and especially how that egregiously affects African American women. So when we look at it and we think about it, we say, well, what is the root of this problem? Systemic racism is the root of this problem. It will always be the root of this problem. And I know you originally started out, Ms. Keema, by saying, we apologize for offending anyone. I don't apologize. I'm unapologetically true to what I do as a birth worker in our community. And I'm unapologetic when I look at the numbers and I see how adversely affecting and disproportionately this affects African American women. And so we talk about this and we discuss this more so to bring awareness, but then also to look at, where those issues stem from, what we can look at from a perspective of how we can be individually responsible, how we can be communally responsible, and then look at what can be done to change the systems on a macro level. And everybody has their role in that. There are some of us who are boots on the ground, like myself with my nonprofit, the Natural Way Birthing Project. We're boots on the ground. We're doing the work one-on-one with the families. And then you have individuals who are working on a systemic level to bring about change from advocacy and lobbying and implementing laws that need to be changed as it relates to how healthcare is delved out across the board, when it comes to women. But looking at what's really going on with black women in particular, what is the situation and how is it affecting us from the perspective of having a voice in this, having pre-existing conditions as it relates to health, the preconception health aspects of it, lifestyle, environmental, nutrition. There are so many factors that we have to look at and we have to be cognizant of as we're continuing to serve and bring awareness to black maternal morbidity.
Excellent. So let's talk about some of the causes. What we've talked about in our posts most often is systemic racism as being one of the factors, and that's the factor that people don't want to talk about. They don't want to. They don't want to own that. I don't know if you saw the original post that NBC did from Hakima's little NBC, the little bit that they posted.
Yes.
The comments on that, I felt myself getting so angry I had to stop reading. The vast majority of the comments were, "This is BS. This is not true." Well, that's the easy way out. We don't want to face it. We don't want to admit it. We don't want to own it.
Of course.
We want to just dismiss it as they're playing the race card. And I think it's important that people understand this is not an issue of playing the race card. Race is a factor. And we need to talk about it. So let's talk about how systemic racism contributes to the mortality rate.
Well, we look at, race being a factor, it's the racism. It's the isms that get, added to the fact of being a black woman birthing in America. We notice that these issues don't happen in other countries. Even third world countries have better maternal mortality outcomes than we do here in America with such an industrialized society. So there has to be something. If people are saying, "Oh, that's BS, you're playing the race card," then why is it that black women are dying at a 4 times higher rate?
Reason?
Why is it? So if you don't see racism being a factor, please enlighten us. Please educate us, because it's not a siloed situation. It's not one situation. It's not one issue. Oh, if black women would eat better, then they would have better outcomes. Oh, if black women would go to their prenatal care, then they would have better outcomes. Evidence has proven that even those black women who do all the wonderful things that have been afforded to the privileged white women in our society, that they still have the same adverse outcomes. And so an African-American woman with, college-level education, multiple streams of income, very, very advanced knowledge and access to care, all of that can be coupled with a white woman with no high school education, and the white woman will still have a better birth outcome. So we look at, where does race play the factor in this whole thing? And it's pretty high up on the list. And so being a black woman in America having a baby creates another layer of concern, especially for those of us who are in the birth industry as birth doulas, birth educators, postpartum doulas, even, OBGYNs and midwives who serve our population of moms. And so when we look at racism, we have to look back at the history and where we come from. We come from a situation where black women were experimented on. Black women were not given a voice into how their care has affected them, their lives, their families. And so these are things that happen, over the course of time that creates cortisol in the body, which creates these stress hormones, these catecholamines that our body cannot fight off. And so if the body, and even despite being pregnant, stress is a silent killer. Stress will kill you even if you're not pregnant. And so let's couple that with trying to build a healthy baby. Let's couple that with your body having, pre-existing conditions that may have not even been related to pregnancy at all. And then on top of that, the microaggressive behavior that women experience when they go in for health care, prenatal care, is so egregious, just the types of interactions that black women have to experience starts to create a situation where those stressors lead to higher blood pressure, elevated blood pressure levels, those elevated levels of cortisol and other catecholamines in the body that creates an inflammation type environment. And so, a baby has two options. Either I'm going to stay in here and I'm going to get as healthy, in this environment as long as I can to have a better outcome, life on the other side, transitioning Earth side, or I'm going to come a little bit early because I just can't deal with the situation in which I'm growing in. And so that's kind of the situation that our little munchkins have to deal with. So is my mama healthy enough to carry me to term, or do I need to come on into the world and see if technology can keep me on this planet a little bit longer? And so when the stress starts to happen and the body has to determine, do I reject this baby and deliver early, or do I maintain this pregnancy to term and risk mama's health even more? And so when the physical body is put through those challenges, we're just built to survive. We're designed to survive. And so that survival aspect will lead a woman to deliver prematurely. Right. And so that puts our infant mortality rates at a higher level. And so infant mortality goes up because we have prematurity, which leads to low birth weight, which are number 1 and 2 risk factors for that. And then you couple that with the health aspects and the treatment of black women during the pregnancy process, then we're looking at so many more issues, and we're trying to figure out, well, really? That doesn't seem like it's a racism issue to me. Well, it really is. And we really have to examine how is it that we're treating our women, the most vulnerable times in their lives, when they go in for care to build a healthy baby, to carry a baby to term, and to have a very productive, empowered, and satisfying birth experience so that their body can then heal and do what it needs to do to produce the milk that's necessary to breastfeed and give babies that good first start and give mamas that good long-term health start. And so those are some of the things that we have to kind of really look at. How are we treating our moms at this most vulnerable time in their lives?
And I think that's a good point. So let's dig into that a little bit more, because I understand what you're saying, and that's all you have to say to me to understand. But I want our listeners, our viewers, to really, really understand. So I'm going to go back to the point of racism playing a part, because we need to illustrate that. So can you give an example of what you mean? What happens typically, or what happens oftentimes to black women when they go to the hospital or they go to the doctor or whatever? And let's talk about the microaggressions as well.
Right.
What are we facing?
And so we look at situations like a mom who goes in for her prenatal appointments, and she's met by who we call the gatekeeper. That's the first person that a mom walks into the doctor's office, and who she has to encounter. And something simple as asking a mom a question like, is this your first pregnancy? And then mom asks and answers, yes, this is my first pregnancy. Then she gets asked another question. So you haven't had any abortions? And then that becomes a question.
I'm sorry.
Hakima's just calling in.
Oh, awesome.
Hello.
Hi. Did you get my text that I've been at a birth?
I'm sorry, but I didn't. I'm sorry.
Welcome
but
to
that's what we do. That's what you do. So we know that. So thank you for calling in. We hope everything went well with the birth.
Oh, it's still going.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you might have to.
But I'm removed to a remote location.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much for calling in, and for our listeners. Hakima Tafunzi Payne has just joined us. Nikia Lawson is here. We were just talking about, obviously, the crisis in the Black community, which is our topic today. But we were specifically talking about what moms face, what Black moms face when they go to the doctor, when they go to the hospital. We're trying to really illustrate the microaggressions and the racism that exists, that is part of the problem. I'm putting you on the spot because you just joined us. I know you haven't had a chance to even catch your breath, but can you speak to that issue?
Well, welcome, Mama Hakima. It's so good to have you on the call with me. I'm honored to be in the midst of this discussion with you.
Greetings, Nikia. So good to hear your voice again. Great time when you were in the weekend. I'm just admire of the work that you do.
I'm sorry. It's really hard to understand you. The phone is really choppy right now.
Yeah, whatever remote location you went to didn't quite give us the clarity that we need to hear you and to definitely get.
All right, I adjusted some things. How was that?
Okay, that's much better. Thank you. Good adjustment.
Okay.
You'll have to say that over. We couldn't understand anything you said previously.
I was saying it's great to hear Nikia's voice. It was lovely to host her when she was here in Kansas City, and I'm a big admirer of her work. So great to be on the show with you.
Definitely an honor to be here with you.
Okay. So, did you have anything to add to that point of the racism being the cause? And we really wanted to just not say racism is part of it. We wanted to give an illustration, an example of what Black women face when they go to the doctor, the hospital, or what does the problem look like?
So to give an illustration, and I talk a lot in my teaching about unconscious bias or implicit bias. And so often healthcare providers, healthcare administrators deny that this is an issue that Black women receive, quote unquote, different care than other women, or women of color receive different care than dominant culture women. But from my time as a labor and delivery nurse, it was a really easy observation. So while care providers often deny that they give unequitable treatment, I don't believe they're purposely lying. I think what's at work here is unconscious bias, and so they truly aren't aware that they're switching in their brain in their responses based on a person's appearance and what they believe about that person based on their appearance.
Right.
So I think this is a really complex problem. It's not, and I'm not just brushing this with a broad stroke and saying dominant culture healthcare providers are racist. It's really not as simple as that. It's largely systemic, that policies and procedures may be in place, but they may be applied differently to Black and brown patients than they are to white patients. That a white physician might listen sooner to the complaints of a white patient than they would a Black or brown patient. So all of these things are really insidious and can be really subtle. And then, of course, patients of color don't know that they're being treated differently.
Right.
And one of the problems here is I run a group called Story Hour, and women who have experienced losses or perinatal mood disorders can come to this group and just share their story with other women, other people who can relate to their story of loss or mental compromise. And a common theme that runs through these stories is that women come to believe that whatever poor outcome occurred was somehow their fault. And part of the message I'm trying to relay to them is, no, you need to see this in the bigger picture, in the bigger construct. That often this is the insult added to the injury, is that our community women often think they've done something wrong, that whatever occurred is their fault, and they don't see, because they're not seeing the bigger picture, such as researchers or social advocates do, or social justice advocates do, that this is a national trend. It's not just what happened to this particular individual. It's happening to all our women all across the country.
Wow.
And part of that insidiousness is not only are you treated differently in such a way that harm comes to you, but you're led to believe that whatever harm comes to you as a result of your own actions.
Right.
And usually that's just not true. It's just not the case. We are getting poor care. Black women tend to deliver at poor quality hospitals. The quality of care that they get is diminished. The attentiveness to their issues is delayed. So all of this is borne out in the research. So folks don't want to believe that their actions result in this, but that's what it is, that providers and administrators are actually causing a lot of these poor outcomes.
Right. Okay, hold that thought, because we definitely want to talk about that a little bit more. I think we definitely need to dig into that a little bit more, but we have to take another break. We're going to take a short break, and here comes the Marvin Gaye 1977 classic, Got to Give It Up. This is another song in honor of my birthdays. It's Birthday Girl's Choice today. So this is my jam from back in the day.
Hey.
On a radio program. So back to the room.
Welcome back to
right, all
Natural.
right.
Welcome back to Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Keema. We are here with our two experts regarding the crisis of the maternal and infant mortality rate in the Black community, Hakima Tafunzi Payne and Nikia Lawson. So again, welcome and thank you, ladies, for being here. We were just talking about what racism looks like when we talk about this crisis. And I know, Nikia, you had a couple examples because we really need to make it clear so that it's not, they're just playing the race card, but no, this is really happening. And I think the comments that, I keep going back to the comments on the post because they were so awful, but it's easy to say, oh, well, I'm in healthcare and that never happens. I know I treat everybody the same and I'm colorblind and all that. That's kind of part of the problem because you have to be able to look at the way that you treat people and the way that you respond and that kind of thing in order to really understand that there are some differences across the board. I think there's but anyway, I'm going to let you give us a couple examples to make people really understand what this looks like from our eyes.
Right. So one of the things I was sharing before was about microaggression. And so that whole idea of, and I'm going to use the example of a woman who goes in for her initial prenatal or during a prenatal visit, and she's met by who we call the gatekeeper, that first person that she'll encounter in that session. And a simple question is asked, like, is this your first pregnancy? And a mom asks and answers that question, yes, this is my first pregnancy. Then she gets bombarded with different versions of the same question. So you haven't had any abortions? The answer would be no. So you haven't had any miscarriages? The answer would be no. So you don't have any children at home? The answer would be no. And so after you've got asked and answered 1, 2, 3 times, then there starts to be a tightness that kind of balls up in your chest.
And it's funny you say that. I don't mean to cut you off, but do you remember when Lauren was in the hospital one of those times for August? I don't know if this was when he was actually born or one of those times
right before he was born.
But she was asked so many questions that all of us stopped at one point and looked like, are you serious right now?
And a lot of them actually had to do with whether I was with my child's father and if we were married.
Yeah, over and over again.
Legally married.
That was the question. Are you legally married?
And that is the kind of microaggressive behavior that happens more so with African American women than I notice with, and as a support person, and mind you, as a birth doula, I'm literally in the space with mom during her time when she's going in for that prenatal care, and to hear these things and to be able to look at look at dad or look at mom and say, you've asked and answered that, let's go ahead and move on. And so mom now feels empowered to go ahead and say, okay, we're going to stop that there, because otherwise I'm going to start getting frustrated, I'm going to start getting angry, I'm starting getting stressed out, I don't want to be here. And so that goes into that whole idea that when you have to walk into your prenatal visit and your blood pressure goes up before you even go through the door, so those are the kind of things that
is a trust issue.
It's very much so a trust issue. And so those kind of things people don't look at as like that's microaggressive behavior that could be racial. But again, is that an unconscious bias that's creating that situation, or is that a conscious situation that seems to happen, over and over again? Situations where moms are routinely given exams that they have not consented to. And I can say that in a lot of cases, that's a woman thing, where, women's voices are not being heard, but even more so with black women, even what they're calling birth rape now, where, women are being forcefully given vaginal exams or treated very, very disrespectfully from an overly sexualized situation as a black woman, making gestures about mama's hips or mama's buttocks. And so those are some of the things that can be, that jokingly it comes about, black women with those birthing hips, those wide hips, and it's like,
inappropriate.
Is that appropriate or is that inappropriate? Exactly, from a medical professional. And so situations where moms have come in with me as their support person and being told your support person cannot come to the back to that, to that examination with you. And so that's the whole point of having someone there to help a mom feel empowered and feel satisfied with the journey. And so these are things that typically don't happen with my white patients and the white clients that hire me to be their support. And so people choose doula care for different reasons, which I think is a good option for women, especially women of color, who are constantly going when the doctor asks questions. They're kind of nodding with the affirmative, but they're really not sure about what's going on, or the language. And that's another thing that happens when you start speaking to a mom from a language, especially our brown mamas. It frustrates me so much so when you know there's clearly a language barrier here from just English to Spanish or English to Vietnamese, you know, for our Asian moms, it makes a difference to have someone that's culturally competent serving these moms so that they feel connected to the journey.
Right.
And so I feel disconnected, and again, there goes that trust. And so how can I trust you? How can I let my guard down? How can I feel connected to this experience when you won't even regard me from the language perspective?
Right.
And so
We have a
those
couple
are situations.
We have a couple comments I want to read. Danielle says, I find this to be very true. And maybe if I put my glasses on would help. I'll put my glasses on.
I find this to be very true, as I've been in and out of the hospital pretty much my entire life, and now working in the hospital, I can see it even more, especially here in Georgia. She also added that I've also found that it's not just how they treat the brown and black patients. We as workers sometimes get that same treatment. I've experienced it personally. And Angelique added, especially when you are asked that question over and over again in front of your spouse, it's not a secret, but it could be embarrassing. And Donna Wallace agrees with you saying being culturally competent and how important that is.
Okay. So that's a really good example. Those are good examples of the racism that's faced. And I want to add this. I've said this before, but Sky's the Limit Communications is one of our sponsors, and they actually did their reporting on a story. And I've said this before, like I said, but where a study has been done that says that hospitals are quicker to call security. Yeah, quicker to call security on black patients and their visitors than white patients, which is again the trust issue. So now I don't trust you because I know you know, if we raise our voice, you're going to call security on us. So there's so many reasons that we don't even want to go to the hospital anyway. And to know that we're, you know, it's possible that we'll get this nasty treatment makes it even that much more difficult. We don't want to forget about you, Hakima. Did you have anything to add to either of any of these points?
These are excellent examples. I've seen them all. Some are certainly explicit bias. Some, so I won't deny your point, Nikia. It's true. A lot of this is very purposeful. But I've also, as a former labor and delivery nurse, I've seen nurses with their black patients say, "Oh, is this the father of your baby?" And with a white patient say, "Oh, is this your husband?" And I call them out on it later, and they say, "Oh my God, you know, I didn't know I was making that difference," but they were making that difference because, of course, the assumption, of course, is the black woman isn't married. So a lot of times, you know, it's really a matter of exposing them to that bias. Another way that it expresses itself that's less personalized and more embedded in the policy is with drug testing. We see a lot of drug testing of black women and their babies, way out of proportion
I'm sorry, I don't mean
how it occurs with white women.
I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting. We have another caller that I'm going to add.
Someone was
caller. Are you there?
Starting to. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Hello, caller. Are you there?
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you were calling in regarding the crisis of the maternal.
Oh yes, I was calling in. My name is Lisa Williams, and I was calling regarding the crisis about the black infant maternal. Right, I'm sorry, but I was calling because we keep talking about this, and we know the reasons what's going on, but when we're going to put something in place. Because I had people to come and talk about that. And I was amazed so many people was not aware of it, African Americans. So what's the plans on getting this out there? Because we know why. We know what's going on. We need to educate the people here in the community more about it because they were shocked. They never knew. They heard of it, but they just didn't know how big the crisis was.
Thank you, Miss Lisa. Miss Lisa's calling in from Terrell, Texas. She is an amazing advocate for the community there in Terrell, making sure that Black Nurses Rock continue to share their message of community involvement and engagement. So, Miss Lisa, thank you for calling in. And I really would like to address specifically what we're going to do. You know, part of what I'm doing along with a business partner of mine, Mr. Lindell Singleton, is creating an awareness through town hall meetings where we come together and we invite the community out, one, to bring awareness to the situation, but then also to find out who are the leaders and how are they crossing over from the business community? Because so many times we don't even look at it from our business communities have a say in this as well. When it comes to infant mortality and maternal mortality, industries will not bring their businesses where communities don't thrive. And so if communities have high incidences of maternal mortality and high incidences of infant mortality, communities do not want to bring their businesses there. Schools are not being built in those areas. There's not enough economic development going on in those areas where the communities do not thrive. And so, again, having these open forums to have these options for families to come out and find out about what's going on, having opportunities to like Fishbowl Radio and, you know, Natural Parenting Talk, that you guys are doing every single week to continue to bring awareness, continuing to share, having classes in the community. Community education is so important. It's one of the platforms that I stand on as a childbirth educator, as a trainer in the birth space, as a birth advocate. It is important to me to make sure that we have more educators in our community out here spreading this message and sharing and letting families be aware of what's going on, because it may take some of that micro servicing that it's going to take, maybe door to door. It may be person to person. It may be interaction to interaction that's going to create that type of change that we're looking for. But then again, it goes back to those individuals who are advocates on the macro level to be able to go in and lobby Congress, to be able to go in and implement change from that level to where systemic change can take place. It's not going to happen overnight. And so no matter how many forums we have, no matter how many radio shows we devote to this topic, it's not going to happen overnight. The goal in making this a concerted effort is consistency. We have to consistently continue to share the same message. We cannot water it down. We can't start apologizing for what's going on, tiptoeing around the facts. We have to unapologetically say the same message over and over again so that we can bring awareness to those individuals who it's affecting the most. It's not going to change the minds of all those individuals who have those nasty comments that say, oh, that's not how I treat people. Well, I'm colorblind, and when I treat everybody the same way, well, you can't treat everybody the same way. And you shouldn't. Not only is it impossible, it's impractical to treat everybody the same way, because I need to treat you how you need to be served so that you get an optimal experience out of it. So I can't treat you the same way I treat the next mom, because your experience is different from the next mom. Your life experiences are different than the next mom. Your needs are different. All of that's different. Then we can't even go back to what's going on with those childhood experiences that lead to differences.
I would like to see more doula information out. Because, you know, when you hear the word doula and all that extra, people think, oh, I can't afford that. So we need to really be pushing the resources about the birth doulas and advocate for these mothers when they do go through childbirth. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I can't afford it. And you don't see it advertised as much. I don't remember seeing it when I had my kids, which was 28 years ago. But I don't remember having an option. I wasn't given an option.
I'm with you.
They said, oh, you want to breastfeed? No. Okay. It's not saying, okay, you need to breastfeed. You can get this for your child. I wasn't educated. It was like a yes or no.
Well,
understand. Just like when you go to the doctor, they
wait, before you do that, let me
and they move on.
We actually had another caller join who we've not acknowledged yet. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you for joining us. Did you have a comment?
So so my name is Marsha Jones, and I'm an absolute fan of Nikia. Nikia, I'm sorry, Nikia. And
Oh, can you turn your radio?
You got to turn your radio down.
Turn your phone down.
Yeah, your phone or something, because we got the background echo. Yeah, it's got that delay.
Right.
That's
okay. I'm always get stuff wrong.
No. You get it right. You get it right all the time, sis. I appreciate you. You have my heart.
Let me see. I'm going to step away from my whole thing there. That's
okay.
The problem. I'm on the phone and I'm on the computer, and I just thought I'd step away from the computer.
Okay. While you're doing that, we had a couple more comments. Jennifer Mozique says supporting Black birth workers and educators is important. And Angelique said it's not a personal problem, it's a worldwide problem.
Mm-hmm. And it may be a worldwide problem, Ms. Angelique, but let's understand what's going on right here in the state of Texas. Let me bring some metrics to this conversation.
Thank you.
Because when you look at 11% of the population of women in the state of Texas give birth are Black women. 11%. That's a small percentage of the 100% of women that have babies in the state of Texas. 11% are Black women, yet we make up almost one third, 29.7% of the women that die before their first year. And looking at maternal mortality from the way that it has been defined by the CDC, not by the state of Texas, but by the CDC, a woman that dies within that first year of childbirth, barring a car accident or homicide or cancer, those are considered maternal mortality statistics.
Oh, wow.
So outside of a car accident, cancer-related death, or a homicide, if she's had a baby within that year and she passes away, that's a maternal mortality statistic. Now, we're looking at almost a third of that 11%, that small percentage of women in the state of Texas who are Black women that are giving birth, almost a third of that number die annually. And you can't
that puts it in perspective.
That puts it in perspective.
Yeah,
if you can't see it from that perspective, look at the few number of women that are giving babies in the African American community in the state of Texas, and look at the number of women that are dying. Almost a third. Come on now.
And that's what makes me say or ask the question, why aren't we on the rooftop somewhere screaming and hollering? And I mean, it's not heard enough. The message is not out there loud enough. We're not getting the attention of the people we need to get the attention of. I don't know what it is. Hakima, are you still there?
I am still here, and she's absolutely right. Your commenter is correct. We should be screaming this from the rooftop because no self-respecting country should allow statistics like this to occur, because not only are, Nikia is correct, not only are Black women dying at a much higher percentage that they represent of the population, those numbers are actually going up. So the number of Black women dying has actually increased in the past decade. So it's not even getting better or staying stagnant, it's getting worse. And doulas are part of that solution, making doulas accessible. Midwives are part of that solution. Top-down anti-racism training, working with hospital and other healthcare institutions to become anti-racist and anti-oppressive. That's part of the solution. There are many facets to that. To this, Nikia mentioned changing laws, changing policies and procedures, changing protocols. We really need to attack this on many fronts to begin to chip away at these horrible statistics.
Yes, and I hate to cut you off, but we do have to take another short break. But before we do that, we'd like to give a shout out to Birth Texas. Birth Texas is a 501c3 nonprofit organization empowering expecting moms and birth workers through education and community events. Join them on July 21st at the Arlington Convention Center as they welcome Shafia Monroe for a fun-filled event on childbirth and parenting. Check out their Facebook group for more information or visit birthtexas.org to access their online guide of evidence-based birth providers and childbirth and parenting events throughout the Metroplex. Empower yourself through Birth Texas. And we will be back right after this break.
What's up, everyone? This is Soup the Poet.
And the lovely Lola.
Why don't you catch our show?
Vibing with Soup and Lola.
Every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 a.m. Central Standard Time in the Green Bowl.
On Vibing with Soup and Lola, you'll hear the hits from the 90s and before, news, events, and the hottest Let's Talk About It topics.
You'll hear the freshest, motivating, in-your-face poetry from yours truly, and also featuring some of the hottest poets from Houston and far beyond.
And so much more fun. Tune in every Saturday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Standard Time in the Green Bowl. Tune in.
Jump in.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Groovy Gary, and I'm just letting you know you made an awesome choice by tuning in to Fishbowl Radio Network on FBRN.US. Keep it locked right here. Fishbowl Radio Network, FBRN.US.
Candy Yam's Kitchen, Food you can feel. You can experience Southern and Creole classics from down-home gumbo, upscale shrimp and grits, and mouth-watering desserts from specialty pound cakes, pies, decadent peach cobbler, and an unforgettable banana pudding. Whether large or small, Candy Yam's Kitchen has everything to give your event a taste your guests will remember. Savory Southern cuisine, bold New Orleans flavors, united with an all-star presentation. You can be assured that you will be the talk of the town after booking them for your next party. You can reach us at 469-450-0027 or follow our journey on Facebook and Instagram at Candy Yam's Kitchen. That's KANDIYAMZ Kitchen. Again, give us a call at 469-450-0027 or like our Facebook and Instagram page at Candy Yam's Kitchen, spelled KANDIYAMZ Kitchen. Candy Yam's Kitchen, food you can feel.
Introducing the Ferrero Rocher cupcakes loaded with luscious layers of sweet goodness, coated over dark chocolate cake, made with the freshest and finest ingredients to make you say, holy cupcake. Voted top 3 cupcakes in the DFW area. Wondering where you can get these sweet chocolatey goodies? Where else but Lake Cupcake and Treats? Call us now, 682-999-8276. That's 682-999-8276. Or visit us on our Facebook and Instagram at Lake Cupcake and Treats, where we make life sweeter.
Congratulations from Velvet Oasis Events, wedding and event planning. What a great time for us to get acquainted and determine what style, design, and package will work for your upcoming wedding, gala, social, or anniversary event. We specialize in helping people have a better event experience. Velvet Oasis Events customize your event design with your vision in mind. From beginning to end, we're there to assist. So for that wow experience you won't forget, remember Velvet Oasis Events. To get more details, go to velvetoasisevent.com, velvetoasisevent.com, or call 817-500-1579, 817-500-1579.
Hey everybody, it is Blue Jape, and whenever I want to hear the latest topics, and whenever I want to hear some dope-ass music, I keep it locked right here on the Fishbowl Radio Network.
Welcome back to Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren Keema. We are here with Hakima Tafunzi Payne and Nikia Lawson. We left off talking about, I don't think we got past our first question. It's just define the crisis. Right. But what I'd like to do now is let's talk about how we got here. Mm-hmm. During the break, we were talking about that here at the table. And I think that's a good place to start is how did we get here? How did this happen?
Mm-hmm. Right. So, we've had the conversations before about the gynecological advances that have happened and how those came about. And so I rarely give credit to those individuals who have been insidiously evil to women of color and culture. But it started from the whole idea from slavery. It goes back to slavery when black slaves were used as scientific experiments to perfect gynecological services and procedures so that it would be to the betterment of the white society of women who were giving birth during that time. So back when birthing, before hospitals were a popular entity for birthing, women delivered by midwives, and those were the grand and granny midwives of the South as well as other parts of the country that were able to share their expertise, their knowledge, their skill, their wisdom, their ancestry to bring babies earthside very healthy. And that was all babies. There was no discrimination because they didn't have a choice to discriminate on which babies were born healthy or not. It was the joy of being a woman serving another woman from a biblical perspective to serve a woman and making sure that she had a healthy and safe birth outcome. And so as the onset of males practicing gynecology started to become a norm in our society, it shifted from the granny midwives and the grand midwives, and a message was propagated that black midwives were dirty, black midwives had tails, black midwives were so unclean that babies were dying. Totally unfounded and unfactual, but that was what message needed to be sent out by the media of the time to make it appear as though what they had to offer that was coming forward was better than what had been happening. And so with that, midwifery was vilified. And so black midwives were vilified and literally eradicated to the hands of white males and white nurses who came in with this, we're clean, the hospital is safer, and this is where you should come and have your babies. And so in the midst of that, they were still perfecting gynecological practices on the backs of black women, where they were doing hysterectomies, they were doing cesarean surgeries, they were doing fissurectomies with no anesthesia on black women. And the shocking part of that was that black women didn't die. We still hung in there, we persevered through that, and we didn't die. And so then the new propagating was that black women don't feel pain. Because if we can do all these horrible and heinous acts on them, to them, without their permission, because they're our property and they don't die, they must not feel pain. And so that started to create another, bias about black women, that not only can you do anything to a black woman because she's less than human, she is property, then also now she doesn't feel any pain, so there's no need to continue to treat her with any kind of humanity. And so those inhumane practices were passed down when gynecology was taken into the classroom and taught by the same white males who, again, were perpetrating these atrocities. And so if those atrocities are being taught to the counterparts of those individuals who are now going to be administering the care, and again, for years and years and years, we still weren't even allowed in hospitals. And so even not being allowed in hospitals and not being treated apart, we still had the grand midwives and we had the granny midwives who were there servicing our women and taking care of our mothers and making sure that our babies came earthside safely. And then when it got to a place where that was completely vilified and completely outlawed, and women who were caught practicing midwifery on those levels were either jailed or in some cases hung from trees for just basically servicing the need of the community, then women had no other choice but to take their practices and their services into the hospital. And then, of course, then the onset of social services from a governmental standpoint came in. So now we're subsidizing the care of poor women, because the Bible says there will always be the poor amongst us, and the federal government will make sure that they monetize that scripture. And so by creating programs to now serve these marginalized women, these women of low income and low status, now we have an opportunity to capitalize on their marginalized status in society, and on top of that, we can still treat them any kind of way. And so that's where we began. And so again, if the same individuals are teaching this, and this message is being passed down from educator to student, to now you're practicing this on women in our society, do you think that black women have been held to a higher standard when it started out this way? And that's where we started.
We've got a couple comments. Jennifer Lyle says there's a movie about that, but she can't remember the name of it when you were talking about the midwives.
All them babies. All them babies.
That's what it's called? Okay, all them babies. Okay.
I can't remember the
Angelique said that makes a lot of sense why things are the way they are. And then Ari says, I work with Native and Black women as a doula. What conference? Check out 7th Generation Birth Services, Medical Apartheid by Harriet A. Washington.
Wonderful resource.
Okay. Oh, Erica's the one that said Medical Apartheid, which again, I didn't put my glasses on, but I read it. We also have an additional caller on the line, and I apologize that we're trying to juggle so many things at once. And again, we keep saying this every week. We're still new. We're still trying to figure everything out. So we apologize. We have not forgotten about our callers. There's a new caller on the line. Is that right? Caller, are you there?
With the 214 area code.
Okay. Hakima, are you still there?
I think
did we lose our callers?
Technology.
Yeah, it's great when it works, but when it doesn't, it's I don't know what happened.
We're still on Facebook Live. They can still give us some feedback. We definitely are encouraged.
I don't know what
by
happened.
the feedback.
Yeah. So, Hakima, if we lost you, please just call in again, and we'll add you to the call. I'm not quite sure what happened, but you know how technology is. But we'll move on with the questions now. And we went into more detail as far as, how did we get here? And I know this is...
Hello. I'm not available to speak with you at the moment.
Oh, we got a voice.
Hi, you've reached Mama Hakima. Please leave a message and I'll get right back.
I'm available.
Sorry, that mailbox is full.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for calling. Goodbye.
And leave a message with one of our staff. Again, I'm not available to speak at the moment, but I do want to talk to you.
Awesome.
So leave a message, detailed message, or call me at 972-629-9366. Thank you, and you have
Okay, so that was a major boo-boo. I am so sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna keep on going while we have our technician help us.
Yeah. But anyway, as I said, we talked about kind of how we got to where we are now.
Yes.
And now we want to talk about, what are the next steps? What are you personally doing to help change those outcomes? I know you spoke about how you're a boots on the ground person.
Yes.
So what does that mean for you?
So for me, and I can talk about me personally, having a nonprofit organization, the Natural Way Birthing Project here in the Tarrant County area, serving all of DFW, but focusing primarily in Tarrant County. Our focus is infant mortality awareness and reduction through education, advocacy, and support. So my organization provides education free to the community. All of our education is free for our community of moms. And even though my goal is to reach out to African-American moms and really impart in them the need and the necessity to take advantage of this free education, I do serve the entire community of women because, again, so many women are affected by these systems, but more so African-American women, and Black women have to be aware of what is available to them in the community. So we offer free community childbirth educations every fourth Saturday of the month except December. Individuals can go on the Natural Way Birthing Project Facebook page, events, or on our website to find out about the childbirth classes as well as breastfeeding education. Because, again, we talk about solutions. They say, Nikia, what is one of our number one solutions? Support through professional and skilled and trained individuals who can go in and be a direct liaison for our families to create their own voice in their experience, as well as breastfeeding.
So when you talk about breastfeeding, and we talked about that a little bit when we had Black Breastfeeding Week last year. For people that don't quite understand and they're thinking, okay, how does breastfeeding relate to, you know, helping with the mortality rate and all of that? How are those two things connected together?
Well, aside from being divinely designed to give birth, aside from being divinely designed to heal ourselves and to survive, we are designed to sustain the lives of our offspring. It is a natural process. Very few women can't breastfeed from a physical standpoint. There are some situations where it's contraindicated for a woman to breastfeed based on maybe some health issues or some medications that she may need to take for other aspects of her health and wellness. But for the most part, women can breastfeed.
Yes.
And women should breastfeed. Human babies deserve human milk. There are so many properties in breast milk that is beneficial to the development of a newborn baby. And so it's so many that there isn't enough evidence-based research to identify all of the benefits of breast milk. So we just want to give it to our babies because we want to give them the best start. And I tell mamas all the time that I work with, if you have done everything in your power to sustain a healthy life and bring a baby healthy earthside, then you have the capacity and the capability to continue to sustain that life, you know, further on. And your baby deserves the best of you. You've given your baby the best of you during pregnancy. You've given your baby the best of you during this birth journey, and you should give your baby the best of you in terms of nutrition and a good first food. And so that benefit to baby is going to help take babies to another level from an immune building perspective, from a developmental perspective, but it also has benefits to mom. And so it helps the uterus involute a lot sooner, which means the uterus has to shrink down to its natural size. The uterus starts out the size of an avocado, gets to about the size of a small melon, and then it shrinks back down to about the size of a cantaloupe after delivery. And I like to use those fruit because you can go in the store and see that, and you're like, oh, wow, that's the size of my uterus. Exactly. You know, pear, avocado, cantaloupe, melon, back down to a cantaloupe, back down to pear, avocado shape. And so that's what we want to make sure that women are aware of. And when you breastfeed, you help that process happen, and it speeds it along a little bit better, and it makes it a better transition for moms as well, minimizing the amount of bleeding that she has, balancing out the hormones, creates more oxytocin in the brain when mom is breastfeeding. When mom breastfeeds, it sends a message to the brain to create oxytocin. And oxytocin creates a situation where our muscles will contract. All of our muscles contract, not just the uterine muscle, but the muscles that are the alveoli cells that are around the milk ducts will contract, and they'll squeeze that milk into those milk ducts and send that milk down to baby. And so that's creating a hormonal process for mom to create a balance. And so the body produces more serotonin, more prolactin, more relaxin, creates a situation where her body is a lot more at ease, and it counteracts those catecholamines we talked about earlier, those stress hormones. So there's a benefit to breastfeeding. There's a bonding that happens between mom and baby, which creates, again, those higher levels of serotonin in her brain, which causes her to just calm down. She's not as anxious as she would be if she was just trying to do all of this. And so that necessity for support in that area, because people think that, oh, my boobies are here, they're going to feed my baby. My baby knows how to suck, swallow, and breathe. Match it up, breastfeeding is going to be a breeze. Or for those women where it's not a breeze, we need to have that support to step in. Like Mama Hakima said, we need to have those IBCLCs who are women of color and culture who can go in and support those moms from a culturally competent perspective so that she has a good start to breastfeeding. And that is going to be one of our big solutions when it comes to maternal and infant mortality. When it comes to infant mortality, safe sleep. It is so important that our babies are getting a start for safe sleep by putting them on their backs to sleep, making sure that they have a fresh air passageway so they're breathing in fresh air, they're not breathing stale air, not breathing in carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, creating a situation where the brainstem could shut down because babies are sleeping on their tummies, where they don't have the ability to roll over at that early age, when mamas are so scared that their babies are going to regurgitate and throw up. Breastfed babies rarely have those situations where they spit up and throw up. If your baby's projectile vomiting, you need to get to a pediatrician. We got an internal gastrointestinal situation going on that needs to be dealt with. But, human babies are designed to digest human milk. And so babies are going to digest it a whole lot easier. They're going to sleep a whole lot easier. Now, it digests faster, so you're going to have to feed them more often. But what else you got to do? You ain't got nothing else to do but to feed your baby. And so with that, we create these situations to where we're getting those healthy starts, those healthy first starts.
We have another comment. Angelique says, I think there should be more education given prior to giving birth. For instance, that you have to drink a lot of water so that you will have a healthy breast milk flow. She says when she gave birth to her first child, she had issues breastfeeding because she wasn't educated on what she should do for healthy breast milk flow. And I want to add to that that this is not a new issue of the whole education thing, because I say this all the time. My children are 27 and they're almost 20. I don't know how they're old. I got grown kids.
Yeah, I got a grown one too. It was mandatory that she breastfeed.
But nobody mentioned breastfeeding to me either time. I mean, they brought in formula, and it's like, okay, that's what we're doing. Nobody talked to me about breastfeeding at all. I feel like I missed out. But the fact that that's still happening today,
very much so,
is crazy.
When I had a regular OB before I switched to a midwife, we never had the breastfeeding conversation. The first time anybody mentioned breastfeeding to me was when I went to have an ultrasound with Hakima, she'll be on next week.
Waller,
Yeah, she'll be on next week, by the way.
Imaging.
But she talked to me and she said, "So you planning on breastfeeding?" And I'm like, well, yeah,
and that's when we know that as a community we have to come together to make a change, because obviously Hakima is a black woman and she saw another black woman there and she figured, I wonder if anybody's had this conversation with you,
which nobody had, and still didn't. We never had that conversation for the entire time that I was under that doctor's care. We never talked about it, and it is so important because there's so much to know about breastfeeding. You know, you think about it and you'll think maybe, okay, well, this should come easy to me. And sometimes it doesn't. And if nobody's really talked you through how to work through those issues, you're like, well, they brought me the formula. I guess I'll go ahead and use that because this is clearly not working.
Or mamas have the support while they're in a hospital environment or under the care of their midwife during the birth experience. And then when you go home, it's a whole nother world because there's no one there kind of holding your hand through this process. And you're like, okay, what am I supposed to do? This baby is not doing.
And you do need somebody to say,
you need the additional support.
You can do it. You can do it.
Which is why we offer free education in the latch clinic once a month. You know, we're having our latch clinic tomorrow.
There really is a lot, and the encouragement for breastfeeding is just so important because, as you've mentioned, I mean, that's important for the health of the mother, for the health of the baby. I mean, if you can do it, you know, you should for for both of your health.
And I don't think that message is loud enough, for sure, isn't loud enough or clear enough. You know, encouraging black women to breastfeed.
And I think it's getting, you know, and I think one of the things that we were talking about too in terms of solutions, you know, one of the things that I have to hands down give credit to is social media. You know, as much as people say, I can't be on social media, it's too much. You know, you got to know when to plug in and when to unplug.
Right. And where to plug.
And where to, exactly, that's so super important, where to plug. But because of the advent of social media, so many women are realizing and recognizing I'm not in this by myself. These are not my lone thoughts and my lone expressions in the middle of the night. You know, and one of the benefits of having groups on social media, especially, and I can just use Facebook because that's one of the platforms where I spend a lot of time and energy in marketing my businesses and interacting with social media groups, interacting with a lot of mommy groups as well as breastfeeding groups specifically. You have tens of thousands, and I think there's one black breastfeeding group that has 30,000 plus going, black women who are breastfeeding their babies all over the world. Right. And so if 2 o'clock in the morning here in America you're having an issue, it's not 2 o'clock in the morning somewhere else. You get up on social media and you post it where there's 30,000 people, you're going to get some kind of response. And the group is moderated by, you know, internationally board certified lactation consultants, another opportunity for a woman of color to be able to serve. And so these are women who have given their anecdotal remedies to situations that they're dealing with, from lip ties to tongue ties to, you know, sore nipples to engorgement to mastitis, you name it. There's a support network where women can say, I have some support. Women have given so much credit to these groups saying, this is the reason why I've been able to breastfeed longer, is because I've had the support of these particular groups. And so, you know, giving credit to social media for that and that purpose, it is an opportunity for women to plug in.
And again, plugging into the right source is really important. There are all kinds of groups, and you can be a part of a group that's not predominantly black, and that's fine. But we do have specific issues that are just just part of our community, and it does help sometimes when you are able to talk to people that look like you. And I mean, we've had case after case that we've heard of women it's so easy to bully folks on social media, but people will get bullied really quick on social media if they're in the wrong group. So you got to be careful about where you are.
So what do you think needs to happen for a change to occur?
So for change to occur, one, we've got to educate more. We've got to educate more. We've got to make awareness a priority, a consistent priority.
Let's go back, though, because I know we talk a lot about birth workers and what birth workers are doing in the community and that kind of thing. As a non-birth worker, I would like to think that we are doing, at least we're starting to do a good work in the community through Crunchy Boutique, but we're not doing enough, I think. So for non-birth workers, what can we do to help? And I mean, we're screaming it from the rooftops as loud as we can as individuals.
Yes.
But is there something else we can do?
Well, again, using your voice in the platforms like this. You know, not everybody has the opportunity and the ability to create a radio show to, you know, bring these topics to the forefront. So, you know, using your voice and using your platform to say, hey, we need to get the messages that are affecting and impacting us, you know, in this natural birth space, in this natural parenting community, in this natural black womanhood and this black woman sisterhood, this whole natural concept of taking it back to the roots to what we know works. We got to continue to do this. Again, that consistency is what's going to create a change. It's in every aspect of our lives. If we create consistency, we will warrant change. And the question is, do we have a good consistency with it, or is it a negative, a good change or a negative change? And so where that consistency and that good change happens is, again, having the same concerted message. We cannot water this message down by saying, well, it doesn't really make that big of a difference when moms are treated a different way. It does make a difference. We have to continue to say, women, you have to be empowered. You have to have a voice in this. You have to seek out culturally competent care. You have to seek out organizations that are serving women who look like you, sound like you, provide the resources in which you need, and know that they exist. And they're not, you know, there's a handful of us, but we exist, and we have to continue to provide these resources to women who are seeking out the knowledge.
And I think also, you know, white women also will ask the question, well, what can we do? And I think, you know, there are several answers, obviously. And one of them is, don't be in that group of people that says this does not exist. You need to really examine your own biases. We all have them. We all have them. And you have to examine your own biases and examine the speed to which you say, that's not happening. They're playing the race card. That's not true. I'm colorblind. Everybody's the same to me. It's just not working. But then also using your privilege.
Yes.
First of all, acknowledge that you have privilege.
Yes.
Because you got to acknowledge that, you know, I mean, white
Shout
privilege
for the
exists.
rooftops.
Come on now.
Say it again for the people in the back. So when it comes to that whole, well, what can we do? I always give shouts out to my allies, you know, and to the women who look like me, who are, you know, boots on the ground, in the trenches doing the work. Kudos to us all. But then for the women who are on the opposite side, that step into the forefront with their privilege, and they use their privilege to say, it's not about me. I will maintain this door wide open and allow those individuals who do have the privilege to continue to hold the door open and call on all my resources to make sure that the women who are doing the work can walk through those doors. I give extreme shouts out to those women, to women like Cheryl Gaspard, who is a midwife here in our Tarrant County community, who will only be a preceptor for black women. That is major when you have situations like that for black women who have so few options when it comes to midwifery and the care, and to be what we like to call 5 cups of coffee woke, you know, to have woke white women. You know, I got all the woke white women, shouts out to you. If you're 5 cups of coffee woke, keep on pushing. You know, you got my 110% support. So I can appreciate that. Women who use their privilege, and if nothing else, they use their resources. And so they simply say, when Nikia, what do you need? Such and such, what do you need to continue to do the work that you're doing? How much is it going to cost for you to continue to offer this? How much is it going to cost for you to continue to provide that?
But I want to say,
and
too,
that
though,
helps.
Let's be clear that it's not just money. Obviously, money is important and it's necessary. But if you even just start having the conversations, you know, let's acknowledge that this is going on. We have a friend who, and I won't go into the details of it, but there were people she was being bullied. There were people in the group that could have stepped forward and said, no, we're not going to do this to her. What she's saying is true, or what she's feeling is true, or whatever. None of them did that. So that's a way of helping. Is you tell the story. It doesn't always have to be us that are talking about the mortality rate in the Black community. White folks need to be talking about it too.
Yeah, got to be conscious white people. So you have to be conscious.
Yes.
Before you
like
tell
you
the
said,
story.
Woke.
Yeah, I need
woke
folks. Yeah, I need folks that's 5 cups of coffee, black coffee, strong,
yes.
cappuccino style, espresso style.
Espresso, yeah.
Yes. So and that helps, and so yes, when as Mama Hakima likes to call the dominant culture, as they continue to have the conversation amongst themselves, it takes those women who are conscious enough to say, these are the things that are affecting our ethnic counterparts. These are the things that are affecting Black women in the birth space. These are ways in which we can continue to be allies to them. And part of that starts by listening. One, listen to what we're saying as Black women, and then two, listen to what their own individuals in their own circles are saying that have a true affinity for working directly in tandem with us. And so that helps us take our messages to the next level. It helps us take our work to the next level. And yes, we do need them to have the conversation. I need your money more than I need your conversation. I'm just going to say that. For me, being boots on the ground and continuing to do the work, to being a direct service provider, it does help me to have those resources. Sure. And so I appreciate when women are having the conversation. And again, I don't even just say that amongst Black women, because I can have the conversation with Black women and still enlighten them.
Oh, for sure.
And so they're like, whoa, I didn't even realize that. Oh, my gosh, I got to tell somebody. And so each one teach one, reach one. And we do that by consistently having the same concise message that we're sharing about the effects that this is having on our community as a whole. Because, again, it is affecting us more adversely. It is the disproportionate rate in which we are dying and our babies are dying are greater outweigh to our ethnic counterparts. So we have to continue to have this conversation, and we give kudos when others are having the conversation in tandem with us.
Okay. And that's so interesting that you say. Oh, are you taking him? No. Oh, okay.
I was just.
Oh, sorry.
Put it out there. No, go ahead.
But that is so interesting that you say that about educating even other people in the Black community.
Yes.
Because as we talked about it, this is a crisis that has been going on for over 100 years, really, as far as the 2-to-1 or 4-to-1 ratio goes. But I just found out about this maybe about a year ago.
Right.
And I think the same for you and the same for so many other people in the Black community. So it's like we're not even, talking about this with each other, which that may even be the first step. If we, as an entire community, get together with one voice, which I know is so hard for us to do.
Yes, it is. It's not impossible. It's just, it's a concerted effort. We have to consistently say, when I have this conversation, I'm going to make sure I make it aware that we're dying because of these reasons. And if a woman doesn't understand what that means, let me put her in contact with someone who does.
But here's the problem, and that's why I said that. I said it jokingly. This is impossible. Obviously, nothing's impossible, but we've got so many issues that everybody has picked up their own individual banner. This is what I'm taking care of this cause, or this person's got. We've got so many issues that it's hard to rally around one. And people like most of us, we've got a lot of issues we want to be concerned with. So I guess maybe there's so much focus on other issues that are going on in the Black community that this is kind of taking a back seat, sadly. But if we scream louder.
Well, and again, there are those of us who this is our life calling, this is our passion, and so I won't sit down.
Right.
I can't sit down.
Thank
God called me to the work,
Thank
and
God.
so this is the work that I was called to do, and I appreciate that. And this is my reasonable service unto God. So for me, it is the work that I must do. And again, not everything is in my lane, so I'm real good about staying in my lane. And so if it's an area in which I see there's a need and someone else has that expertise, I'm going to definitely make sure that resource is known. So for people to know, right here in DFW, you have a resource. Myself, there's a wonderful sister and a midwife in Dallas that are doing the work through Abide Women's Services. So shout out to Cecily and Bethany for the work that they're doing in the Dallas community to, again, bring awareness to what's going on as it relates to care, to marginalized women, and all over the state of Texas. And I'm sure Mama Hakima and what she's doing with Uzazi Village in Kansas City, Missouri, again, is taking legs. And there are different organizations all over the country that are taking legs in communities, and it's taking all of us to, again, make our passion and our mission the forefront of the work that we do. I just can't be silent about it because, again, it's my reasonable service.
Of course. Okay, we need to take our last break. We will be back with Nikia Lawson right after this break. Still Birthday Girl's Choice. So enjoy Brick House from 1977.
Yes, that's my anthem.
She's mighty, just letting it all hang out. She's a brick house. I like lady stack, that's a fact. Ain't holding nothing back. Oh, she's a brick house. Well, put together, everybody knows this is how the story goes. She knows she's got everything that a woman needs to get a man. She lose with the suit she used. 36, 24, 36. What a winning hand, 'cause she's a big house. She's mighty, just letting it all hang out. And she's a brick house. Now, like lady stack, that's a fact. Ain't holding nothing back. Oh, she's a brick house. Yeah. She's the one, the only one, built like an Amazon. The clothes she wear, her sexy ways, make a old man wish for younger days. Yeah, yeah. She knows she's built and knows how to please. Show enough to knock a strong man to his knees. 'Cause she's a brick house. Yeah, she's mighty, just letting it all hang out. Holding nothing back now. Shake it down 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 now. Break house. Yeah, she's mighty. Just letting it all hang out.
Welcome back to Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Keema, and we are here again with Nikia Lawson. Thank you for being with us. We're having such a great conversation, and we have just a short time left, so we're going to maximize our last few minutes.
Mm-hmm. We wanted to talk about options as far as birthing and why that is so important, especially to Black women with knowing their options.
So it's super important for Black women to know what their options are when it comes to, I'm pregnant, or better yet, I'm thinking about getting pregnant, and so from the perspective of, I think I want to have a baby. How do I prepare? Most women don't even know what they don't want, let alone what they do want. And so we were talking about, being able to walk in with a list of things that you want for your birth experience. You really don't know how to create that list unless you've been educated, or you have some amazing women in your life that have kind of given you the guidance. Again, it's someone kind of walking you through the process of what your options are. So it's so super important that women take advantage of all opportunities to get educated. Do the due diligence. It is your responsibility to your body, to your baby, and to your birth experience to find out, what can I have? What can I have? What can't I have? What do I want? What don't I want? Make that list, and then find out, well, if I can't get that with where I am, and I always tell mamas all the time, you have an ABC doctor at an ABC hospital, but you have an XYZ, desire for an experience, you're going to have to either come in the middle or you're going to have to find an XYZ provider in hospital to get that birth of your choice. But it's there. We are in birth utopia. I say it all the time. DFW truly is birth utopia. There is something for every single woman based on what type of birth experience she wants to have. She just needs to be aware of it. And the sooner she's aware, the easier it is for her to kind of acquiesce and, and to kind of navigate what those options look like so that she gets the birth of her choice and she's empowered by those decisions.
Let's assume this woman doesn't even know where to start. And we mentioned social media. Do you know off the top of your head any really good groups that would be for a new mom or a newly pregnant mom who knows that she wants to change her potential birth outcome or be careful about her birth outcome?
Well, I'm always going to tell people to call me first. I'm not going to send you to Facebook. I'm going to say call Nikia. So for
nationwide, we're going to give you a number
from a perspective, you can give my number out nationwide because I have contacts all over the country. So that's a help too. And because I'm not an expected mom, I'm typically not either invited to the expected mom groups or I'm not seeking out. I do participate in the Black Moms Breastfeeding group on Facebook, and again, I'm not across all the different social media platforms. So I encourage moms to, if nothing else, look for them. Do I have a specific group to refer to? I don't. Unfortunately, I do not have very specific names of specific groups because there's so many that you can get in based on your due date. You can get them based on your location, the demographics, and
it's
the fortunate part
you
can
Google.
search.
You type whatever you need
can search
in Facebook and search.
Exactly. And I encourage moms to search those social media groups out that have, the specifics. They give a description. They'll tell you what the group is all about, and they may screen you by asking a few questions about what you're looking for in terms of the group. And get in the group and search those questions that you may have and see what those answers are, and then seek out those individuals. And again, it's going to take some work. And so the assumption that this is just going to come to you from your doctor is not always the most accurate assumption, or that it's going to fall out the sky like manna from heaven. That's not an accurate assumption either. You have to be willing to be, a partner in your own health care. You have to be willing to step up and say, this is what I do want and this is what I don't want. And if I don't know where, then again, there are resources like the Natural Way Birthing Project in the East Coast, Mama Toto Village. There in Missouri, you have the Uzazi Village. In Atlanta for breastfeeding, you have Rose, the Reaching Our Sisters Everywhere breastfeeding organization. Karina has the and I can't remember Karina's.
Well, while you're trying to remember, anybody that's watching this, whether it's now or later, we're always monitoring comments. It could be a month from now. If you comment, we will respond. If you watch this video and you want to know how to get plugged in to a group or to a midwife or a doula or whatever resource you need, comment on Facebook and we will definitely respond because it really is that important.
Yes, and education is important. And so again, when there are free resources, take advantage of those free resources. If it's a nominal fee that's required to attend a particular class, instead of going out and getting a bunch of lay-ed sets and a bunch of things on your baby shower list, ask for education as a gift. Ask for doula care as a gift. I always make that suggestion, so that you can bless those individuals who are making a sacrifice to be there to support you through the journey. Bless those individuals and you'll continue to be blessed. The more you give, the more you have to give. Thank you, Sherry Stone, for that tidbit of knowledge, those nuggets of growth and wisdom. The more you give, the more you have to give. And so I continue to give because that's what my mother taught me. And I teach that to other people, and I teach that to the individuals who I train. If you lead with value, I promise you it'll never be a situation where you'll do without in terms of what you're trying to accomplish in the birth community. And so it is necessary that we continue to give and give and give, and then the rewards come in return as well as the monetary benefits.
We haven't really talked about many. We were talking during the break. We're going to have probably a part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of this discussion. But if we could just touch just a little bit on some of the other causes. We talked about racism being one of the causes, but we know that there are multiple causes. Right. So let's talk some about some of the other causes of the maternal mortality rate.
Next to racism, you have stress. And stress is a major factor because stress creates a situation to where the body is imbalanced, and then there's an imbalance that leads to inflammation, and again it leads to a very unfortunate situation that babies just cannot develop properly in the womb when mama's body is trying to just basically stay healthy for her own self, and so she typically deliver early, which leads to other health issues for her as well. So that's something that we need to work on. We need to work on what are those stressors, and so mom needs to start to identify what are the stressors in my life during my pregnancy when I'm the most vulnerable. What are those stressors so that I can start to eliminate those stressors? And that's hard to do. And so my background as a social worker, my background as a counselor, some of the things that I work on with moms when I have those conversations, what are the things that stress you out the most? And what are the things you do to alleviate stress when you are stressed out? Taking a walk, incorporating exercise, incorporating reading or listening to music, sister friend time, all those things that make you happy. It is for me, I took the word stressed and overwhelmed out of my vocabulary altogether back in 2016. And so everything I do, I look at trying to create balance in my life. If there's no balance, then I have to take some things off my plate so that things balance out between motherhood and business and community and personal. You have to kind of look at where does this balance out so that I don't get, quote, overwhelmed and stressed. So S&O can lead to no. And I say that all the time. If you're stressed and overwhelmed, you need to start saying no to people. And so that's it kind of helps that out. And so mamas need to get to that place, especially our expectant moms when we have so much on our plates already just being black in America. So you have to start taking some of those things off your plate so that your body can start to respond more healthy, and that health and wellness becomes the number one priority. Nutrition is a big issue as it relates to some of the things that we're dealing with. And again, it's not that one issue. So when we couple stress along with the fact that, our mamas live in food deserts. And so it's not, I don't want to eat healthy. I don't have access to healthy foods. And so I would love to be able to eat quinoa salads with fresh spring greens and spinach. But if the only thing that's at the grocery store is iceberg lettuce and a half rotten tomato, because that's the closest thing to me in my community, and there are no fresh groceries or fresh markets, then that's a problem. And that's a problem for our urban culture. That has nothing to do with being black. That's an urban culture situation. Again, systemic. When you create these systems across the ways. Access to care. When you can't get to your provider because there's no public transportation and you don't have, private transportation. These can be concerns and issues that lead to moms not being able to access care. And so, you got to look at that. Environmental factors. DFW has one of the worst air qualities in the country. And so environmentally, if a mom is already having an issue, because as babies start to grow, lungs have to expand and contract to breathe. And so if your lungs will only expand and contract so far just because of the physicality of developing a baby, then you're breathing in bad toxic air. On top of that, you're not getting full lung capacity. What situations does that put mom in? Let's not even say if she has asthma or she has bronchial issues. And so those could be some things that were pre-existing that led to the fact that now with the air quality and the environmental issues, she's having a hard time just breathing on a daily basis. So, looking at that, sidewalks, people don't even realize how important it is just to be safe walking down the street. Just to be safe walking down the street, having areas where moms can be safe to walk in her own community can become an issue. And so those are things that, suburbans take for granted, that you can walk down the street. But in urban communities, there are no sidewalks. And so that could be an issue if your transportation is public transportation. You have to walk down a major thoroughfare to get to your local bus stop, to get to your prenatal care, which is on the other side of town, because that's what was accessible to you at the time. So there are so many other factors that play a part into how our mamas have to deal with this. And again, most of those that they're trying to navigate lead to more stress. If nothing else, making sure, and I always tell the story when I'm teaching about a friend girl of mine who was a mature African-American woman. We went to elementary school together, middle school, and high school together. She got pregnant later in life with her last kid. And in the midst of her going to her doctor's appointment, she locked her keys in the office on her way to her appointment. So she's trying to scramble within minutes to get to her appointment and get to her, calling in, let them know she's going to be running a little bit late, whatever. She gets there, and guess what? They do the initial screening. Her blood pressure's up. Well, yeah, I just had a hard time getting here, and she asked for a few minutes. Can I just give me a few minutes just to calm down? Well, they're rushing her because now she's running late. Now you're behind. You're throwing the doctor behind schedule. We check your blood pressure's high. They admitted her into the hospital. Admitted her into the hospital. Scare tactics are being used on black women all the time. Your baby can die. And so if you get told your baby can die because your blood pressure is so high, when all you really need is about 10 minutes to just sit down, get a woosah moment, relax, relate, release, and you're going to feel a whole lot better. Now she's got 2 other children who are school-aged at home. They're admitting her into the hospital with a scare tactic that her baby can die because her blood pressure is sky high. Now she's got to try to find care for her other children. Do you think her blood pressure went down anytime soon? No, it did not. All she needed was 10 minutes to just allow her body to just relax. But you don't have 10 minutes of grace you can give a woman, and you know the situation that's going on. These are the kind of things that lead to a situation where it's like, why do I even want to go back? But I need to go back because I need my prenatal care. I need to go back because I want to make sure my baby's healthy. I need to go back because I want to make sure I'm healthy. And then it leads to one thing, and it becomes a snowball effect.
But the interesting thing about that, about the reasons that you've stated, is that even still, and obviously I'm not the expert, so correct me if I'm wrong, but even still, we could talk about a woman who does live in the suburbs, who has transportation, who can get to her doctor's appointments, who eats healthy foods and does all those things, but she can still face other issues that would cause,
and again that leads to the stress that's already in her body. And so we get passed on these stressors from our it's epigenetic. We get passed on these stressors from our parents. It's in our cells. It's kind of at the cellular level, and there's not really much we can do about that until we start thinking about it now. Like, I was really conscious about my health and wellness before I got pregnant with my daughter, and so I've given my granddaughter a pretty good start because I didn't internalize. I did take care of myself. I did find a provider who, made sure that I had what I needed. And even though I didn't have the most, pleasant birth experience with my daughter, I gave her a good first start, and that creates a situation where cellularly my body was in a better position to build a healthy baby and to then pass those genetics on. And so that does make a difference. And so we are predisposed genetically to the issues that happen, that again, no matter what situation you put yourself in later in life, with good education and good demographics and from a home front, access to healthy foods, access to care early on, prenatal care and postpartum care, you're still at risk from a cellular perspective.
Right.
And then couple that with the stresses of being black in America and trying to build a healthy baby, it does put us at a disadvantage.
Right.
We can't start taking those first steps, and we can't start identifying again. Let's start identifying culturally competent care. Let's start identifying those providers in our community who are providing the kind of care that our mamas need, knowing that all these things are already coupled against her walking through the door. We already know that she's had to be black in America. We already know that her body has undue cortisol levels in it. We already know that she's carrying those catecholamines. We already know that from a cellular level, she's probably dealing with stuff. Then we can probably look at some of our moms and realize and recognize just from their background what their access to what they need is: air quality, food and nutrition, transportation, to limit those stressors. So walking through the door, if she gets coupled with all the love and support that she needs, some of that can just melt away. It can just melt away with love and affection.
Well, I cannot believe how fast time has gone by. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being with us. We were just so happy that you were here. We had a blast talking about this. I don't know if I should say we had a blast talking about this topic, considering what the topic was. But it was
it's a great discussion to be had. And I know if you're watching the live, if you're listening on the radio, I'm sure you're like, there's still so much more to talk about. But during the break, we talked to Nikia, and we're planning to have her back in August. So
during Black Breastfeeding Week.
During Black Breastfeeding Week. So look out for that because this really, actually the radio show could really be themed after this, because there's so much to talk about, and it's so important to keep hammering the message over and over again in order to see any change.
Right. So tell people how they can find you on social media.
So there's a couple ways you can find me on social media. I can be reached through the Natural Way Birthing Project Facebook page, which is, if you guys see my shirt, let me turn around so they can see my shirt. Bam! The Natural Way Birthing Project. You can always reach us, just a simple phone call, 817-841-9291. You can call the Birthing Project number and, again, make whatever effort we can to support moms in terms of resources. And I would appreciate any of those families who are in need of guidance through this process to seek us out for education. We have free community childbirth education once a month on fourth Saturday. We have free lactation education. we'll be offering classes there at the Crunchy Boutique. So that's a wonderful thing. Look forward to doing a future casting call for an upcoming segment that we're trying to video to bring awareness again to black breastfeeding and how beneficial it is to understand that initial relationship. And then also reaching out for doula care. If individuals are wanting affordable doula care, the Birthing Project has that as a resource, so they can always reach out to me and inquire. So.
Yes, and again, if you're not local to the DFW area, still reach out to Nikia.
Yes,
she knows when I say she knows
Facebook.
everybody, she knows everybody.
Yeah.
We had an event a few weeks ago at
Sorry.
Crunchy Boutique, and more than half the people there said, "Oh, she trained me. She trained me too. She trained me too." It was like,
trained by
Nikia. So that is definitely a good thing.
I appreciate those who trust me.
Yes, definitely. We want to remind you again that Birth Texas is a 501c3 nonprofit organization empowering expecting moms and birth workers through education and community events. Join them on July 21st at the Arlington Convention Center as they welcome Shafia Monroe for a fun-filled event on birth, childbirth, and parenting. Check out their Facebook group for more information or visit birthtexas.org to access their online guide of evidence-based birth providers and childbirth and parenting events throughout the Metroplex. Empower yourself with Birth Texas. Also, remember Crunchy Boutique. We are the natural parenting store in Arlington, Texas, and online. You can find us at crunchyboutique.net. Thank you also to our listeners and Facebook Live viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Be sure to catch us each and every Monday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Central Time on Fishbowl Radio Network on fbrn.us in the green stream, or find us on our Facebook page, Natural Parenting Talk with Lauren and Keema. If you'd like to continue today's conversation, please feel free to comment on the video on Facebook, and we will respond. No matter when no matter when the comment happens, we will respond. You'll want to be sure to tune in next week when we welcome two women who are doing business and making things happen in the parenting community. Carmen King of Code Name Mama and Deborah Rainey of Little Muffin Cakes. So that should be a fun segment next week. So
awesome.
Again, thank you all for being part of the show today, and thank you all for your comments, and thank you again, Nikia. We love you.
Thank you. Love you too. Love
all
you
right.
too.
Yes. Thank you all, everybody. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye.
Are you looking for great rock and roll? Well, look no further. Tune in to Austin Scott every Monday